Good morning. It's Thursday, April 21st, and the buds are on the trees already, and I expect I'll have leaves in a couple of weeks out there. And that'll be good. That'll be a nice change. But in any event, I want to talk today about shortages that occur in this country. This particular shortage has really nothing to do with the pandemic. This is a shortage that deals with the education of special needs children. There is a shortage of educators in the special needs field. And many school districts around the country are using substitute teachers to teach those classes. And these teachers are not qualified, not fully qualified to teach in special ed, because they haven't got a certificate for it. They're working towards their certificate, but it is very difficult to find these teachers. And so school districts have taken the opportunities to put these people to work while they are trying to earn their special ed certificate. And I guess that's a desperate situation, and so it's the only thing they can do. But it's a terrible situation when you consider that these children who are in these classes need experts in the field to teach them. And this is probably a reflection of many parts of our educational system, and it definitely exists in many other areas of our workplaces. It's especially true in technology, I believe, because you need experts in these fields, and this special ed expertise is no different than the expertise in other areas. It will definitely have a much greater impact on the future of the students than anything they're doing in tech. It's very unfair to these students because they have a right to qualified teachers. But unfortunately, there is a shortage. And we as a nation have to address this. This is a big educational problem. Quality of education in this country is probably not where it should be. And this shortage of qualified teachers for special ed is just a reflection, I think, of the entire situation in education right now. And it's true that qualified special ed teachers do get paid more than regular teachers, and that in and of itself is an indication of how difficult this job is that we're talking about. So there ought to be some way to encourage those who have the qualities to take this job on to do it. Perhaps if you want to be a special ed teacher, you ought to get a break on the cost of your education. Terrible thing in my mind that I have a qualified person who could teach special ed can't afford the cost of a good university. So I would think that if somebody is really serious about being a special ed teacher, they should get a break on the tuition. Of course, that should come with some contract, let's call it a contract, that this person makes with the university and the educational system, that they intend to truly carry out their promise that they will be a special ed teacher for X number of years, if we're going to give them maybe, possibly a free ride to get their education and their certificate. Now, I took some ed classes, but I never was a qualified teacher. I was qualified as a professional, and that's why I was allowed to teach the subjects that I was teaching. I worked at that stuff every day, and then in the evening I would teach a couple of classes. But that's beside the point. The problem is the shortage and getting people to want to go into this profession. Because I'm telling you that if I'm looking at this from the outside and I'm saying, I'd like to be a teacher and I think I could do something good in the field of special ed, I better know a lot about it, because it is not an easy job. If you are in a classroom, and these classrooms are traditionally small, if you are in a classroom with only 10 or 12 students, each of them with a different special need, some maybe with Down syndrome, some with autism, some with other things along the special needs spectrum. And you've got to be handling all of these people, because they're not setting up classes for these special ed students by individual problem. They are probably put in a classroom as a group, 10, 12. They're not big classes. I know they're not large classes, but they require a lot of attention and a quality of teaching that is probably beyond most individuals. As usual in this country, we have this particular situation where many states are offering provisional licenses for people to teach these courses. But those who are educators in the real world say this is a bad practice. They worry about placing people in these jobs who aren't fully trained for taking care of a difficult classroom. Many of these experts, these educational experts, say that if the job of teaching in these classrooms is not done properly, it could harm most of the vulnerable students. And I bet you that's true. I can't find any reason to dispute that fact. So this is a difficult situation. What are we to do? Are we to allow these special needs children to go to some schools where they don't have a teacher for an entire year? They just have a rotating group of substitutes that's marching into the classroom, not qualified to teach it at all, but just kind of like keeping them quiet for a whole year. And you know what? The parents of these students have been very understanding, because they know that there are not enough qualified people out there. You could offer bonuses to people to learn special ed, but they have to give you a contract. They have to agree to do it for 5 or 10 years or something like that, opposed to, just a regular teacher who comes on board, and then if they don't like teaching, they leave. But you can't do that in special ed. So there are both sides of this argument. We don't have teachers, but they're against the provisional licenses. What are you to do? This is just one of the major conundrums that's going on in this country. We have many more of them. There's a school district in Indiana, Elkhart, which has taken students and specifically trained them to be special ed teachers. And in exchange for that, those students have agreed to stay on the job for 5 years. And those students readily admit that it is a difficult task to learn. There are so many different things beyond regular education that one must be qualified to take care of. But they say they enjoy it, and they are happy to risk 5 years of their life, first learning and then another 5 years in the classroom. So there are ways around this, and we have to have a national program like this in order to possibly fill the shortage. So while we are a great but faltering country, there's just another notch in our belt, so to speak, another problem that we have to solve. And this is just one small example of the many different problems that we face in the world states. I leave you with that this morning. Bye.